to the simplicity of happiness when more is too much. This podcast offers tips and techniques for a better life.
And before we start with another episode of the Simplicity of Happiness podcast, I would like to remind you that you can find out all about me and my thoughts on simplicityofhappiness.com, as well as Patreon, where I am providing extra content for all of you who support me and the education of children in Africa. And now relax and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simplicity of Happiness podcast. Today you see me sitting inside, which I try to avoid because somehow, I don't know, I don't belong inside, and it doesn't fit that well. But outside, it is difficult to get a good audio and a good video at the same time, because it has been shitty weather ever since I recorded the last episode. There has been tons of snow. Today it's freezing cold. Outside is a heavy snowstorm at the moment, so if I was sitting there, we probably couldn't hear anything because of the wind. I'd be freezing. I'd be covered in snow. You couldn't see anything behind me. And this is why I decided to go back inside for this episode, which is, as you can tell, another solo episode. Just so you know, the next week will be an episode with Martin Oetting, where I am having a roughly 40 minutes conversation about, what we can do to change not only our life, but society. And for today, I decided to go with an episode where I'm reading something to you again, because there are other people who have something to say as well, maybe have something more important to say, and they are often better in writing than me. So why not share their words? And one of the people that I am constantly following since I began my journey to minimize and live the life that I love, was Leo Babauta, and he founded a page, a blog, which is called Zen Habits, when he started simplifying his own life in 2006. And just the other day, he wrote an article which I liked a lot, because I could personally relate to this. And I'm cutting all of my nonsense now and jump right into that article that Leo was sending out via his newsletter. So he's writing, "In the last week, 2 separate men told me they fantasize about leaving everything behind and living on a mountain. I can relate to this fantasy because I've had it myself. Live a simple life away from the chaos and burden of this crazy world. And maybe that's the reason why I want to share this with you, because I can relate to this as well. I even tried it. I traveled 8 months non-stop. I went to the desert. I lived in the mountains. I am living in the mountain now. I lived in Zanzibar for a year, and I sailed for 6 months last year, which I wanted to do this year as well. But I can tell you that, being out on the ocean, there's nothing more like freedom than being out on the ocean. But on the other hand, you're chased by the weather, you're chased by the water, you're chased by getting supply, getting sleep, whatsoever. So I tried it, and I'm coming to a conclusion quite similar to Leo. So I continue in his article. What we and many others crave is not really the mountain, but freedom. Simplicity and space and the liberating feeling of freedom. We think if we simplify and let everything go and get our lives free of the burdens, we'll feel free. But what I found is that getting rid of everything and living a simple life doesn't necessarily give you that freedom. You'll find a way to experience life as a burden and trapped. That's because we create the feeling of burden and trappedness for ourselves in our mind. It's not the external circumstances, but something we create with our minds. A teacher a few years ago gifted me with a liberating idea. Find the freedom in your current life without having to change a thing. And I found that it's completely possible, and also that I forgot to do it a lot. If you're interested in playing with this, you can try it now. In this moment, you can find a feeling of freedom. Can you experience this moment as if you were living a simple, burden-free life on a mountaintop? Can you create this feeling of freedom for yourself right now? It's a relaxing of the mind, a feeling of openness and liberation, of joy and space. And we create it. If you can do this, try this practice. Number 1, in anything you do today and for the next few days, try to remember to practice creating freedom. You might be washing a dish, answering an email, talking to someone, driving, anything. Number 2, notice in the moment the feeling of burden and closeness that you've created for yourself. Number 3, if you can create a feeling of freedom without changing what you're doing externally. Number 4, enjoy this joyous feeling of freedom. And number 5, and repeat all day long. What is it like to live freedom without having to change anything? This doesn't mean you never change anything externally, but it means you're liberated from having to do so. And I think personally that this is one of the main reasons for our suffering in the Western world, because we have everything, or we can have everything, and we can do everything. But we can't do everything at the same time, and therefore we feel trapped. Because you can't be sailing in on the mountain at the same time. And I'm talking from real life here. You have to make a decision, and when you make a decision, you say no to a lot of other things. So whatever you do at this moment, this is your choice. And you do that by saying no to a lot of other things. And I have that feeling that this is the idea about living on your own on a mountain. You get rid of everything else, so you say no to a lot of other things, so that the only thing you say yes to is that simple life on that mountain. And guess what? You can do that with everything else in your life. And if you don't like it, maybe it's time for a farewell. Well, I hope you like that idea of Leo Babauta. I'll put it in the show notes that you can find out about Zen Habits and Leo if you like. And until then, I hope that you have a relaxing time of freedom. I'll talk to you in a week, and until then, take care, my friend.